They maybe want to move on from just taking pictures of houses and real estate, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, there's a lot of opportunities in local television, cable television, television commercials. And a lot of people have the Hollywood dream. And if there was ever an opportunity to break into an industry that's really hard to break into, this is one of those things that you can do it with.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 116. Do you have a dream to make it big in Hollywood? Then stay tuned, as today's guest will share with us how to make that dream a reality. Skip Fredricks is an Emmy-winning aerial cinematographer who has pioneered the use of drones in sports, dramas, and other television shows. He is an FAA drone flight instructor at the Unmanned Vehicle University, creator of Drone TV, the world's first 24/7 all-drone television channel, and he has consulted on drone use for all the major television studios and networks. Skip has spoken at InterDrone, Drone Dealer Expo, and at UCLA's Film School, and his work has been featured in Drone 360, Sports Illustrated, Variety, and BBC Worldwide. Skip is here to talk about drones in television and film, and he'll offer insights on breaking into the industry. InterDrone 2017 will be held in Las Vegas from September 6th through the 8th. This is the largest fully dedicated commercial drone event of the year, so make plans to attend now. Skip will be speaking at this event, and he'll tell us about his session later in this interview. Receive $100 off the cost when you use the discount code RADIO. Go to interdrone.com for details and to register for this exciting event. If you like the Drone Radio Show and want to do a good thing, consider donating to my funding campaign on Patreon. For as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the costs of production and expand its offerings. You can join this effort and get some cool stuff by going to patreon.com/Drone Radio Show. Now let's hear how we can use drones in the television and film industry with Skip Fredricks. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Skip to introduce himself.
My name is Skip Fredricks. I've been in television and entertainment for about 20 years. I started at Fox Sports Net. I was very fortunate. I moved right from being a grip into being a producer. I produced their first extreme sports shows. They were called the G-Shock Rush Hour. It started airing in 1998. It was precursor to the X Games. I actually worked with 4 or 5 of those guys that created that. And my job, and I was pretty much allowed to do anything I want, was to go out and find new and emerging extreme sports and bring them to Fox Sports Net. And I did that for about 5 years, and then left them and went on to do TV commercials, movies, a lot of second unit stuff, which is kind of sort of how I got into the drones and cinematography. And then about 5 years ago, quite by accident, I ran into the founders of DJI at one of the trade shows, and they showed me this drone thing, and I was like, well, no cameras, no gimbals, no nothing. And I said, this is great. I can glue a GoPro to it. And that's what I did, and that sort of started me into the drone business, moving from staying within my field, staying within cinematography and videography and television production, but bringing in the drones and adding them as another tool, as another camera.
What were those first drone flights like?
They were a catastrophe. There was no GPS. There was no cell phone connection. There was no monitor. I had no radio-controlled experience. I never flew those electric planes or cars or anything like that. So I started in my sister's backyard, and I crashed into her palm tree, and I crashed into her house. I'm duct taping it. And then one of my buddies, he's a stunt coordinator, and he was working on a low-budget sci-fi movie for sci-fi TV, like really low budget, like Sharknado low budget or lower. And they said, oh, well, we have this big scene where we got 20 of these alien monsters fighting these space trooper guys, and we're going to shoot in the Angeles Forest because I'm based in Hollywood, in Los Angeles. And he said, so it'd be really cool. We can't get a helicopter in there, but maybe you can get this drone thing in there and fly around. And I was like, well, the batteries only last 5 minutes, and I don't know. But, we gave it a shot. Even though it was a low-budget production, it was a full-blown movie production. So, I was on a set when there was 50 people there, and I had the DJI It's so funny. We had the GoPro held on with rubber bands, these big, thick rubber bands, because you get this jello effect that nobody ever heard about because of the vibration of the motors. And so we had that, and I flew over the battle scene probably for 20 minutes and went through half a dozen batteries. And on set, the director looked at the video and like, God, we can't use this. It's got the little things in it. They think they maybe used 3 seconds of it. But the cool part was there was a lot of the people on the set that were watching what I was doing that weren't part of the production for Sci-Fi and some other people because they made a big deal about this drone. I didn't crash. But what they ended up doing in post, and afterwards when they were putting in all the special effects was they actually were filming the drone flying over to the battle. They digitized it. They put an orb around it. So the drone was used in the scene, but it was actually flying and shooting missiles and things like that. So in only about 3 or 4 seconds of actual footage from it came. Yeah, that was the start. It was a catastrophe. And then, as you know, and the drone years are like dog years. So 6 months later, the gimbals came out, and 6 months after that, GPS came out. I mean, and so every 6 months I was upgrading my drone, or every year I was upgrading the drone. So obviously 2 years later, and, I was shooting all kinds of projects with a Phantom 2 and then a Phantom 3.
And now you have a company that's focused around drone cinematography. How did that evolve?
I went to InterDrone, the first InterDrone, I guess, 3 years ago. And it just was this whole new world of, camera drones and racing drones and all this stuff that I never knew existed. And in my field, in cinematography and second unit production and doing all the action sequences, the money had flatlined. You can get a certain amount, and that's pretty much all you can get. I'm a mid-level producer, so I do a lot of work, and I work on a lot of big projects. But it's kind of like I'm at that point where, I'm either going to be doing blockbuster movies, which is very difficult to get in, or I need to find additional revenue streams for what I'm doing. And that's where the drones came in. So I got involved in real estate, which was paying a lot. I got involved in TV commercials, local TV commercials, all these kind of things that involve cinematography and photography. This happened before the FAA clamped down, before there was when it's still the Wild Wild West, like 2 years into this, you get a Phantom 3, pretty much fly wherever you want, do whatever you want. I mean, it was just crazy. So that led into drone racing. So I found these guys and I did a drone race series. And my buddies were the manager of KMIR, NBC, and Palm Springs. And we put these 4 drone races on television. And then the whole thing about what I was doing exploding. So it became drone racing, it became cinematography. So I have Drone TV, which is actually a television channel on Roku. It's a standalone TV channel. I do about 10,000 viewers a day. It's been on since last December, and that's doing very well. And we expanded around that and did more production. So I have the Drone Broadcast TV Network, which is doing television production, all related to drones. And then I have Drone Networks Group, which is actually my company where we do cinematography, videography, production for the industry, television and film industry. I've gone into surveying and mapping and inspection. We do that. I'm also a flight instructor for the Unmanned Vehicle University. So I started with them a year ago, and I teach people, basic flight and then advanced cinematography, because that's my background. So they have 15, 20 instructors. Most of those guys have military background or RC background. I'm the only one with a film background. So I have people that come from all over the world to take classes from me to learn some of these cinema techniques that I've developed, being a pilot and also being a cinematographer. So it's kind of like my hook. My niche is that I was able to take a lot of these cinema moves that I was known for, using the camera, and sort of just layer them on top of drone flight. And that's sort of how all this came about, everything that I'm doing, which is pretty much nonstop.
That's amazing. You've really been able to do what a lot of people hope to do, and that's developing some business ideas and income streams using drones to augment their primary business activity.
Well, that's a good point. And it's funny you would bring it up. It's a great question or statement. It's that I've had people come to me initially, like last year, they came to me about a cell tower inspection, power line inspection, and also training people to do that. And so there was a debate on, I don't have that background in cell phone inspection and cell tower inspection. And I said, what do you need to do? And they said, our guys go up there and they look at the towers and, they take pictures. And I said, I'm actually a cinematography, photography expert. So if you're saying that inspecting these towers and these pipelines are nothing more than taking pictures of them, I said, I take pretty good pictures. I've been doing that for 20 years. So the idea is, it was like, hey, let's go up and take pictures and make sure they're really good pictures. And that's what they guys are using. So it was kind of funny that they made it sound like, it's such a hard thing to get into, inspecting these towers and power lines and things like that. And really, it comes down to it is these drones are, except for the racing ones, these drones are really cameras in the air. And, the more you know about a camera and the more you know about using pictures and video, the better it'll be for whatever business you're in.
What kind of programming do you deliver on Roku?
I'm focused on 4 of my pet projects. I do an environmental show called the InterDrone Warriors, where we go out and we're sort of going to all these, what would be environmental disasters, and we're filming them. We're documenting them, stuff that people can't get into, we're getting into with the drones. I'm working on a sci-fi project called the Drone Assassins, which is sort of like the Mad Max meets drones in the Badlands. Currently what we have in production, we have a television series in Los Angeles called Sunset Confidential. And that's very much like a sort of the guy's a private investigator / security expert. And he uses drones in surveillance and providing security. So the drone becomes not only an object that films the production, but it's built into the production. So it's kind of like where, the lead out, and this is what the producers really liked about the series. This is going to be on LA TV, so it'll be nationwide. So the producers liked it to where the drone was getting, let's say, the shot of the lead character surveying or doing surveillance on the bad guy. And so we were feeding, we're obviously recording, live to the SD card, 4K to the SD card on the drone. We're using the Inspire 2 for that. And then we're sending the live feed, to his tablet. So in the scene, the lead character is actually looking on his tablet to what I'm really filming, to what's going to be in the series. So it's kind of this neat dynamic of incorporating everything sort of in real time, even though it's for broadcast later. So, we're working on that. So that's one of my pet projects. And fortunately for Drone TV, they're allowing us to use the behind the scenes of that. So that's the project. And then, of course, drone racing, which is just, something I just like to do. And so that's what we're doing, what I'm doing specifically. And then the other programming comes from other producers from around the world that, want to take a step above YouTube and get on television.
That's quite a menu. Now, do you still do the traditional cinematography and production, or are you now totally drone focused?
Funny you should mention that. Yeah, I do a lot of television commercials. In this business, you need sort of an agent. You have an agent that works with you in some of the bigger projects. And I've pretty much got to a point in my career where I did everything I could with a camera on my shoulder. And I don't want to say I was bored with it, but I was just going through the motions. And now with the drones and the creative side of what I do, it's all this new creativity. So it's like, how do you get this drone shot? Or how do you recreate this camera move? Or how do you recreate a crane or a dolly or all this kind of stuff? So when I get to these sets now, it's really exciting. And fortunately, I can charge more money than I used to. And I told the agents, that I really don't want, unless it's drone related, I really don't want the job. Unless it's crazy, unless it's some crazy production, working with Steven Spielberg and making a ton of money with, that's fine. I'll do that. But in general, the projects that I'm working on now, I'm trying to get away from and stay away from traditional camera work that I did, which was never really very traditional anyway. As a second unit director and producer, most of the stuff that I was working with was action cameras, the GoPros. I've been using GoPros forever, and maybe 20 in a scene that we might be working on. But I mean, we still have the cameras on the shoulder, but now it's trying to just stay with the drones. After being in this business for so long, nothing really gets me excited to come to a set maybe at 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, like being able to do something with the drones do.
Can you describe a shot that you've taken with a drone that you're most proud of?
Yes, I have this one that I really love. And I think when you talk about signature move, when I'm shooting with the regular camera, let's say the camera on my shoulder, my signature moves was being able to come in, super zoom up close on, let's say if it was a motorcycle rider, the shifting of the foot or the eyes inside the goggles, things like that. So you really can't recreate that kind of a shot with drones, but I was just trying to come up with one. So I had this one shot, and we're doing the eco drones. We had the guys from Mothership Blimp down in the Salton Sea here in Southern California, which is polluted and dead. And so those guys were flying over the area that we were inspecting, Bombay Beach, and we were sort of following the blimp in the air with our drone. So I had my Inspire there. I have an Inspire 1 as one of my drones. I have a Phantom 3. I have a Parrot 2, Parrot Bebop. I have a Parrot Disco. So I got a pretty nice fleet of drones that I use different drones for different projects. So And this one particular one, what I was doing is I was coming off of the water, so I'm really low. So it's like flying maybe 2 or 3 feet above the ground. And then the idea is what I like to do is I like to just peel up. So start gaining altitude with the shot and then angle the camera back. Let's say if I was taking off, let's say heading north as an example, and the object I was filming would be then to my left side. So the idea would be to take off low across the object. We were shooting these salt pillars. So I'm running about 3 feet above the water and then above the ground. And then as I climb and get altitude, I climb up to the left. So I'm doing a climbing left turn. And as I'm doing a climbing left turn, I'm angling the camera down back at the object that I was filming. So it's almost like a half orbit as I climb out of the shot. Now, when an airplane does it, it looks really neat because the airplanes bank. And so you get this really cool shot with an airplane if you were actually sitting in a cockpit. And I've done a lot of helicopter filming and a lot of airplane filming. But in a drone, it's really hard to recreate unless you're flying like an old RC plane. So with this shot, it's a pretty neat looking, smooth shot. And I guess that would be my signature because I've been trying to pull it off on a bunch of different projects that I've been working on. Actually, I taught 3 camera guys from NBC Universal as part of the Unmanned Vehicle University. And they filmed the Olympics down in Brazil, and they used the shot. So I taught them the shot, and they used it. Yeah, so that was kind of cool.
And you hadn't flown a drone prior to 2014?
No, I had never flown anything like that. I'm a new guy. I learned on the job. Nobody ever taught me how to fly the drones. I do try to go out and fly every week for at least an hour. I'll go through 3 or 4 batteries every single week in the morning. If I'm not working, a Saturday morning, I'll head out at 7 o'clock. Because I tell my students and anybody else that flying a drone is really a learned skill. And if you don't practice every week, then 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, you just don't have those fine movements down. The cinematography part, that's hard to teach. I mean, that's a creative thing. So you either know how to get the right kind of look you want or you don't. I mean, I can teach people the mechanics of it, but it's hard to teach the creative part. But in terms of flying, no, I never flew anything before. That's
interesting. Now let's talk about the Unmanned Vehicle University. How did you get involved with that?
So I'm at InterDrone last year, and I think I was on a panel. And one of the guys from the school were in the panel, and I said something that caught his attention. And we were a media partner of InterDrone last year, and we had a little booth in the back, and we're doing our videos and interviewing everybody. I was probably having more fun than I should have. And these guys came over and talked to me, and they were from the university, and they said, we're a growing university, we're accredited. People that come to us can go all the way through college and get an aerospace engineering degree, or they can stop at drone flight and get drone education. It's online or on-site, and they're in Phoenix. So they put me through a test. I get tested on my flight skills. And this is, again, before there was a 107. There was a 333. We had to have the 333. So I have a 333. And I also I'm one of only, I believe at this point, maybe there's more, 300 people that actually hold that waiver you need to film on a film set, to shoot a drone on a film set. So I have that waiver. I've had it for about a year now. So we had all that, and they said their thought process was, look, we don't have a guy in Los Angeles yet, and, you're right in the city, and you're in the business, and a lot of people are coming to us specifically for cinematography and photography, and a lot of our guys are RC guys or military guys, and it's great to have them on our staff, but, we want to diversify a little bit, and we think that you could be the direction to go. So they gave me a job that was, I guess, like right at last year's InterDrone. They hired me up, and I went through this online course that they give to the students, and I started training people, and I've trained, I don't know, maybe 20 in the last year from all over the world. I'm very fortunate. My sister lives out in the Rancho Cucamonga Inland Empire of California, San Bernardino County, and there's a wonderful field in unrestricted airspace that part of where the city lets me fly, and that's where I teach the students. No power lines, no trees, nothing they can run into, although they do their best to find something to run into. And I've taught guys from Latin America. I've taught guys, they fly in from Dallas, Texas. I'll go all over California, San Francisco, down to San Diego. And the people that I really train are the ones that specifically want to get into, usually the ones that want to get into film and broadcast, or like the guys from NBC. I'm training most of the NBC Universal Studio people. They're already in the industry. So it's kind of like they were the people that would have hired me, but it's weird. It's like I'm teaching myself out of a job, because normally the NBC Universal would have hired me, and now I'm training all their camera people.
For the students that take your class, what are some of the skills that they need or want to work on?
Interestingly enough, almost everybody that's come to me has never flown before. I've had a couple of guys that have flown that were really, really good. And actually, in terms of their flight skills, they were probably better than mine, but their camera skills weren't. I teach everybody basic flight. It's interesting because all of the flight instructors have developed their own sort of courses. And what I did was, being in the film industry, I looked at basic camera moves. Okay, like this is a dolly, this is a tracking shot, this is a crane shot. So I looked at all these shots and I thought, well, these drones can almost recreate every one of these shots in three-dimensional space. So what I thought I did was I did basically basic flight maneuvers that recreated cinematography shots. So a dolly shot is simply moving a drone forward and backwards in a straight line, right? Forwards, backwards, that's a dolly shot. A tracking shot is pretty similar to moving a drone left to right in a straight line. A crane shot is, simply, moving a drone forward while you're getting elevation. And then you combine those shots, those flight moves, into other maneuvers, and you're teaching people basic flight. It's kind of like the Karate Kid. When the Karate Kid was waxing the car and painting the fence, and he was getting all frustrated, and he goes to Miyagi, he goes, well, I'm tired of painting the fence and washing the car. And then Miyagi punches him and goes, wax the fence or paint the fence. And the kid blocks it. So it's kind of like the same thing with my students. I'm teaching them this stuff like, hey, fly in a straight line 20 times, fly left to right 20 times, do all this stuff. And they're like, what does it have to do to filming? And then I'll say, okay, give me a tracking shot. And they go, what's that? I go, oh, that's left and right. And I go, ooh, give me a dolly shot. And what's that? Oh, move forward and backwards. Ooh. So all of a sudden this light bulb goes off in their head and they're able to do that flight. I haven't had a student crash yet, not one, which is kind of nice. And I think too is, I think the hardest thing for anybody, including myself and any student, is perspective and perception. When they're flying in space, when they're flying in this 3D box, they don't know really how far away they are from themselves, from the object they want to film. They don't really know how high they are. And that only comes from practicing, just getting used to it. Because I love this. I'll tell a student, maybe we're flying at 25 feet. And then I'll say, okay, don't look down at the monitor. Don't look at the controller. And just fly up to what you think 50 feet is. And, I'll have some that'll only fly 5 more feet higher. And I'll have others that'll go up 100 feet. They have no concept of altitude. There's no concept of distance. And that's pretty much the toughest thing that I have them learn. I mean, I put cones all over the flying field with flags to give them an idea of how far they're flying and things like that. But that would be the thing as an instructor that is a student's biggest problem. Besides orientation, when the drone's flying at themselves, when they got the drone spinned around and the camera's facing them, that's another thing. So I try not to even go there with the drones. I try to just teach them to fly, the camera always facing out for the longest time if possible.
I like the idea that you expose your students to terms used in the TV and film industry, because I would imagine that when they're on a set and communicating with their director or a member of the crew, they'll be much more in sync since they're already familiar with the vocabulary.
Again, that's a very good point. It's funny because, most instructors and even the classes that I went through, they talk about yaw and pitch and roll and all this stuff. And I was like, it's tough enough to fly a drone. They're not going to ever use that terminology again. It doesn't mean anything. Back in my younger days, I used to race offshore powerboats, like in college days. And so, you have to take a boating course from the Coast Guard. And, there's port, starboard, stern, bow, and all this stuff. And it's just like, when I'm in this boat racing, guy's just going to go turn left, turn right, go forward, whatever. So it's like the same thing with these students. Initially, when I first started, and I thought, oh, well, we need to teach them yaws. They don't need to know that. It's just, go right, go left, go forward, go backwards, go up, go down. And now, like you just said, layer the terminology that they're going to be using in the workplace on top of that, because no director is going to ever say, okay, pitch, yaw to your left or yaw, and that's never going to happen. So yeah, you're right. It's just kind of getting them ready to go as soon as they're done with me to work.
Based on your experience, how do you think drones have impacted the TV and film industry? What have you seen?
What I really like is I like watching television now and just picking out drone shots. And as I'm watching TV, I'm seeing more and more. And one organization is just using drones almost nonstop. The Walking Dead on AMC. You can watch any one of those shows and see dozens of drone shots. It feels like they're filming the whole show with drones. So, and television commercials, I'm seeing lots of television commercials, but I think it's had a major impact on the studios here and the production and production value. There's no better shot. What it costs a studio or a mid-level production company to bring in a drone pilot and a drone to shoot a scene, is the production value increases a lot. So I've seen it a lot, but what I've seen is that what's happened is like guys like me that are already in the industry, they're the ones that are grabbing the drones and learning how to fly. They already have a foothold, and it's kind of like when they say it's just another camera, another tool in the box. I mean, it really is. If you're a sharp camera guy, you have a full-blown 4K red camera in your arsenal. If everybody here is a freelancer, you have maybe 3 or 4 GoPros in your arsenal, and now you have 1 or 2 drones, maybe a big Inspire 1 and 2, maybe then a smaller drone to do smaller shots and to get into smaller places, like maybe even a Parrot Bebop for shots that it's good for, DJI Phantom 3 or 4. So it's definitely changed and added production value and kept costs down for producers.
As a business, have you been able to maintain your own value in the industry? Or has there been an increase in competition and a move to drive price down?
A lot of competition that's starting to drive the price down. For a while, man, I was the only game in town. It was crazy. I got a hold of this so fast. It was real estate. It was everything. I got the 333 as soon as it came out. I got the waiver as soon as it came out. I got the license as soon as it came out, so I could stay current. I mean, I have contacts with, I work with consultants and FAAs and lawyers. I work with all those kind of people to stay, as current as I possibly can on it. I work with local government. The better I can do for the drone industry, obviously the better I can do for myself. But I used to be able to get $500 a house. You could shoot a house for $500, and now, it's down to 150 because everybody's got a drone. So, man, depending on a shoot, in my industry, you could get $1,500 a day. And what's nice about a day rate with a drone is it really is just the shot. A day rate with a camera guy as a DP, you're maybe on set from 5 in the morning till whatever, 8 or 9 or 10 at night. But with the drone, it was for the shot. Whether you're flying over, a car, you're doing a car chase scene, which is the most fun, or something like that. And once that scene was over and done with, you're done. The same $1,500, let's say, you could get as a camera guy, and you're stuck on the set for 10 hours, you could make the same $1,500 in 3 hours doing a drone. But now more and more camera guys are getting drones. So there's a lot of competition, definitely a lot of competition.
So what do you do?
The idea is to keep your rate up. You need to be able to do something that somebody else isn't. You need to be able to know how a TV set works, but they still always, these producers still always like to look for price. $1,500 I would say that's not so normal anymore. It's probably $1,000 right now.
You're going to be speaking at InterDrone this year in Las Vegas. How did you get involved with InterDrone?
Actually, the guys at InterDrone, Ted, they launched my career in this industry. They did an event in Orlando, Florida, like maybe 2.5 years ago, or 3 years ago. It was after the first InterDrone. So I went to the first InterDrone just, because I saw the ad in one of the trade magazines, and that was in Vegas. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I just went there as a camera guy. So I did a story, and I was actually I was doing a stringer, which is, for people who don't know, that's freelance work for KMIR, NBC in Palm Springs, just because they like stuff to fill their news, because let's face it, there's not a lot of stuff happening in Palm Springs, especially in the summer. I went in there and I did the feature, and I was like, wow, this is really great. And, I knew my drones and got to meet Ted and everybody over there and this staff. And, they said, oh, we're doing this thing in Orlando, and, you're in the industry, would you be interested in being on a panel? I was like, wow, that's really cool. And fortunately, I was able to tie it to a production that I was working on. So I loaded up my Mazda Miata with all my camera gear and all my drones and everything like that, and drove to Florida, which I do a lot, and spent about a week there and did their trade show and did some other work and a whole bunch of stuff. Then I was very fortunate to where I guess I was well received there. They invited me to do a panel at the InterDrone last year in Las Vegas. Now that was something that, I'd seen the growth of the event from the first year, from the thing into Orlando. And then, the year I was on the panel, it was just massive. I'd never seen anything like the whole industry. I'd never seen anything grow like that. So the industry's growing, the panel's growing. And then this year, I was fortunate enough where they said, hey, would you be interested in doing a whole session? And I said, yeah, that'd be really cool too. And I told them, I think I'm better at it now because, I've been an instructor for a year. So I kind of have more stuff to talk about and more experience, and maybe can really help people out that want to get into the industry. that I'm in, because now I'm pretty much teaching people how to do that. So I think it'd be a cool session. So they agreed. So now I'm going to be doing a session on pretty much how to break into Hollywood, the reality of it, but at least letting people know what kind of drone flight and drone cinematography and drones that they should be using if they want to take this to another level, where they maybe want to move on from just taking pictures of houses and real estate, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, there's a lot of opportunities and local television, cable television, television commercials. And a lot of people have the Hollywood dream. And if there was ever an opportunity to break into an industry that's really hard to break into, this is one of those things that you can do it with. Even though, like we talked about earlier, there's more and more people getting into this, which is driving down prices and stuff like that. It still isn't as saturated as, let's just say, sound men or cameramen or something like that. I mean, there's still a lot of opportunities for people to do drone cinematography, drone photography in the industry, in addition to the people that want to go out and do their own projects, film projects. So I'm hoping that the session and the seminar, allow me to at least give people a real good idea of everything that's involved in, what I do and how I get involved with it. And then also all the things, everything that can possibly go wrong with that dream.
The name of the session is Drones Over Hollywood: How to Get In on the Action. How do you think the session will be received?
I had a chance to test it. I was invited to the Boeing Air and Space Museum in Seattle, Washington. I did this thing there. It's the first time I've been there. It's amazing. It's Boeing. It's the second largest air and space museum in the country, next to the Smithsonian. So they did this 3-day drone extravaganza thing over Father's Day. And they have a big movie theater there, a big theater. And I gave a presentation 2 days in a row on the same thing that I'll be doing at InterDrone. And it was wild. It was really something, because there were 7,000 people that came through the doors each day of that. And the stadium that I was in was full. And it was dads and their kids. And I mean, these were people that are not drone people that want to be drone people. And there's a lot of them. I was amazed. There was so many people. But it gave me a good chance to sort of run through everything I'll be doing with the session at InterDrone. It was a good dress rehearsal. Yeah.
I'd like to go back to your shows on Roku and hear the stories behind them. Let's start with the InterDrone Warriors and how it came about.
The InterDrone Warriors is my environmental project, and it's really a project that's close to my heart. I used to be involved in the water sports industry, the boating industry. I'm from Fort Lauderdale. I'm from South Florida. I moved out to California 20 years ago when I got the job with Fox Sports. When I was in Florida, I was involved with jet ski racing and boating and all that. So dirty waterways, which was always something that disgusted me. And so I was always involved in that. Well, when we were filming out in the desert, we were working on a project out in the Salton Sea out here in California. And I never had gone to the Salton Sea, and most people in Southern California hadn't. And so when I got there, you see these beautiful, what you think are beautiful white sand beaches, sort of from the highway. When you get down to it, you realize that the white sand isn't sand at all. It's skeletons. It's skeletons of billions and millions of dead fish and birds. And you're like, oh my God. So apparently back in the 50s, this was a beautiful resort area. Frank Sinatra had homes there. There was hotels and motels and all that kind of stuff. And so as I did my research, because we had filmed down there a music video, and it was all with drones. So it was kind of neat. It was a music video. That was the project, but it enlightened me to the area. And so what happened was the Salton Sea is surrounded by farmland. And this was prior to the EPA. There was no EPA prior to 1978. So in the 50s and 60s, with no EPA regulation, these farms with these pesticides and chemicals, just all the water ran off into the lake. And what it did was the chemicals ended up sort of making the lake salty. It was killing everything. It was killing the algae. It was killing bacteria. It was killing everything. It made the lake so salty, nothing can live there. So the lake, it's beautiful in a kind of scary kind of way. The lake is crystal clear because everything is dead, right? Nothing lives in it. No algae, no bacteria, no nothing. The sand around it is covered with dead skeletons of thousands of birds, because the bird lands in the water, it dies. So I thought, man, nobody knows about this. And I thought, what better way to expose these kind of things is with the drones. The drones can fly over the lake. The drones can fly over the abandoned cities. The drones can get these great shots that you just can't get traveling around by vehicle, because there's a lot of spots that you can't get to by vehicle. So that's where InterDrone Warriors was hatched. So as I started doing my research, we started finding out that there was a lot of other areas similar to that in Southern California. There's the Borax area where the mines are. That's where Erin Brockovich did her story about chromium pollution in the water. You can't get into some of these areas because they're fenced in, they're walled in, they're behind mountains. But we did with the drones. So me and my little drone squad, we started shooting all this stuff from the air. We came up with the InterDrone Warriors, and we're documenting all this stuff that happened without trying to get political, because when you get political, you talk about climate change, and that's sort of future looking, and people want to debate that, but you really can't debate what already happened. So when this town is abandoned because the water's polluted from mining and arsenic, and the lake is gone because it was polluted from this. So we're showing these things. Well, I sent the treatment and the information to the Climate Summit people in Seattle, Washington, which was chaired by Al Gore, and I got approved to be part of that organization and put their little symbol on my project. So as part of the Al Gore thing. So that's got a lot of interest. We're working on the pilot. We had to actually stop filming this summer because it is so hot in the locations we're going to. The drones won't fly. You really can't fly a drone over 92, 93 degrees. And so we're talking here, I don't know if you've been watching the news, but out in California, it's like 115 plus, and the desert's 120. So we really have to hold off on that till October. So that's that project.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's been well received. Like I said, I got a very nice letter back from the Climate Summit people. I was invited this year to go to it to let them know about the project, pitch the project. And we're hoping that through my connections that Netflix or Amazon picks it up and airs it as either as a documentary or as a documentary series. So there's an 80-minute documentary that we hope leads into at least a 30-minute episode series. So worst case scenario, I have my own TV channel on Roku. I'll put it on my own channel. I'm funding that myself. So it's just a passion project.
Then you have the Drone Assassins.
A little more fun. Drone Assassins takes place about 25 years in the future. Everybody seems to be looking at the future as apocalyptic. So it's that kind of a future. And the Drone Assassins are very similar to a Mad Max kind of world, where they're going out to right the wrongs, but they're using drone technology to help them do that. And that comes in security and surveillance. And of course, in the movies, these are also attack drones too, so they're weaponized. But it's a future, it's a movie, it's that kind of thing. And we're enjoying that a lot because we're doing a lot of stunt work in that. There's a lot of my buddies that do TV and movies. Robert Averiel, who is the producer for the LA Sunset Confidentials, he's doing the stunt work. He's done stunt work for Robert Rodriguez and has been in Mariachi and all the, it's a Hollywood thing. It's like we all get together, we have coffee, or we meet for sushi and sake, and like this is the project, and everybody goes out and works on the project. So we're having a lot of fun with that. That's sort of in pre-production.
And finally, there's the show about drone racing.
There's some big crazy money now going into drone racing, and I watch what they're doing. And being a former extreme sport producer for Fox and extreme sport athlete, the direction to me really isn't the right direction. So I'm trying to keep it more grassroots and more underground and more, I don't want to say illegal, but the idea when you sanction these things and put them in rules, and I keep hearing organizations talk about how they're going to be like in NASCAR and they're going to be like IndyCar, and I'm like, I just don't see that. So I'm working on a documentary, and we're going to document the drone racers, but sort of like where they come from and what their lifestyle is, and some of the places they like to go race that don't involve setting up a course in a football stadium and, racing in a football stadium with uniforms on and all this. So I think what's happened, and it's happened quickly, is I'm going to be doing sort of the counterculture, non-mainstream version of racing, which is where it started until all this money got dumped into it and turned it into what they think to be NASCAR. So mine's called the No-Fly Zone, and it's going to document racers and behind the scenes and all of the stuff that they do that maybe they shouldn't do, but really aren't breaking the law, as opposed to, what we're seeing now on ESPN, where they're wearing uniforms and, they got sponsors' logos all over them. So we're going along that line of drone racing. So I have the drone racing, and that's my 3 pet projects that we're working on.
Skip, this has really been great stuff. Thanks for joining me on the show. Maybe to close, what message would you like to leave our listeners about drones and cinematography? So first and foremost, flying drones and filming with drones is the most fun I've ever had at work ever. So this is something where you can have a lot of fun, and you can earn a little bit of money, or you can earn a lot of money, and it will take you on an adventure every time you fly. Every single flight is different, even if you're trying to do the same thing. So it's always an adventure, and you never know what you're going to find
over the next hill or over the next building. So first and foremost, enjoy it. Geez, don't take it too seriously. But when you do, you can make a few dollars at it.
That's it for episode 116 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Skip Fredricks and learning how drones are used in the TV and film industry. I want to thank Skip for taking the time to speak with me and sharing his expertise. If you want to learn more about drone TV or want to connect with Skip, check out the website at hollywood-drones.net. And remember, you can meet Skip in person at InterDrone 2017 on September 6th through the 8th. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the cost of production. I have a bunch of Drone Radio Show coffee mugs for those special contributors. To donate, go to patreon.com/Drone Radio Show. Thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.